So next, part of our Are We Ready series of discussions that we have this afternoon, we have a distinguished panel to speak about the historic conclusion of COP28 in Dubai last year, which commits to transition away from fossil fuels and energy systems in a just, orderly and equitable manner to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. Are we ready for a very different looking future? And what is design's role in getting us there? Please can I invite to the stage Anna Yang from Chatham House. Anna Yang, chair for this session, is the Executive Director of the Chatham House Sustainability Accelerator. Her interests focus on how to drive change for a fairer and more sustainable future. She's currently working on understanding how finance and innovation can enable the deep sustainability transition. She is chair of the board of Instituto Clima e Sociedade, the Institute for Climate and Society, a grant-making organisation based in Brazil and focused on climate change and social development.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Victoria. I'm going to invite all those three amazing panelists who's going to join this session with me. So I have Minister Izabella Teixeira, and also anywhere you want to see, and she's also the the co-chair of International Resource Panel. Then I have Duncan BakerBrown. He's the architect and founder of BakerBrown practice. And I have Dr. Ehab Sayed, founder and chief evolution officer of Biohm. Thank you. So thank you very much, everyone. So each of the speakers will have around 5 minutes, and then we can do a very, very lively conversation and Q&A around it. I think when Victoria and her team sort of reached out this year for us to plan the theme of this for this year's summit, I think one of the things that we were thinking about is what's coming our way over the next decade or so, and what are the transformations that we need to achieve in order for the world to have climate security, so we are going towards net zero, and also have all the nature and biodiversity conservation. And for us to achieve that, actually, we will have a very deep societal transformation, in economic, social, political, and the cultural space. And so we thought that this partnership of LDB with Chatham House is actually a very, very strategic partnership for us to think it through. And obviously design is at the heart of it, right? For example, how we design the city will shape the shape of its transport system, how the waste collection is designed, how the amount of building stock that we will have will determine actually whether that city is of a lot higher carbon or lower carbon. And so that's just an example. And I would imagine that the panelists will all have views and opinions on that. So I'm going to leave it there, and what I'm going to do is best is actually invite Ehab to start, and then we're going to go from there to here. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you all for attending today. I'm Ehab Sayed. I'm the founder and chief evolution officer at Biohm, and at Biohm we're working towards a biomimetic future, or a future that's inspired by nature. Biomimicry or biomimetics is often described as the emulation of biological systems, often biological systems that are only seen as part of nature that is on planet Earth, not beyond that, and is the idea that we take inspiration from nature and create solutions that can help us address some of our major challenges. However, as we dive deeper into understanding nature and the interconnectedness of the complexities of the systems around us, we begin to realize that what we used to call an organism or an entity is only one part of a much larger system around it and a much larger ecosystem that encompasses it. We begin to stretch nature far beyond the boundaries of the atmosphere on Earth and take it towards the cosmos, and begin to see how nature has evolved over the last 14 billion years in order to inspire how we can begin to develop and design technologies and products and systems and projects that address our challenges. Once we do that, we redefine nature from one that is embedded with dualities and binaries separating human from the natural world, to one that encompasses the entire universe, as it is the place, the source, and the result of material phenomena, and that includes humans, human artifacts, and the result of human activity. With that unified definition of nature in mind, we begin to see some unified behaviors and patterns that have evolved over the last 14 billion years of evolution. We begin to see that the laws of thermodynamics not only drive systems as they are evolving into making use of the energy budgets around them, but they are actually inciting behaviors that are shared across all systems around us. We can begin to compare how our stars and our sun and our earth have evolved to how memes on the internet are spreading, because the laws of thermodynamics, the way ideas are evolving and developing, are all governed by the same selection forces that are acting on them. And therefore, we begin to redefine biomimicry to the emulation of the multitudinous hierarchical systems in nature, to create intelligent solutions that are locally situated, socially connected, and that are sensitive to the energetics and cybernetics of their environment. And that's exactly what we do at Biohm. Biohm is a multi-award-winning research and development-led company that places the natural systems around us at the heart of our inspiration. And we do that to realign cultural and natural systems. And that is manifested throughout all of our technologies through the philosophy of allowing nature to lead innovation and only having a positive or regenerative impact on everything that we touch, which is a major claim when we think that we still need to operate within current economic systems and societies. And that is something I'd like to touch on a little bit later. But we've developed natural materials that are regenerative, not only from a carbon or environmental perspective, but also from a social perspective as well. We work with fungi, and we use the wonder of fungi to develop materials that are composites, monolithic, and also 3D printed and cast to address the various resource needs that we are building in our industries. We've also created cocktails of enzymes made from bacteria and fungi to tackle some of the most toxic plastics and synthetic chemicals that are existing all around us, breaking them down and releasing additives for drug discovery and other pharmaceutical applications. We've also developed a material made out of food and agricultural waste streams that can enable you to go anywhere on the face of the planet, find a problematic waste stream that is resulting in negative impact, and transform it into a commodity that can be used by a local community to boost their economic prosperity. And finally, we've developed a construction system that brings together all of our materials and creates a more agile living approach to infrastructure, where buildings can be broken down, reconstructed, and deconstructed at any stage of their life, enabling cities to morph with the changes of the local community and the local context. And this enables us to work towards a biomimetic future that transforms the way that we think of humanity in the story of evolution, from one that has developed advanced levels of technology that have impeded other species and organisms' right to evolution, to the organism that has developed an advanced level of artificial intelligence and radical transformations in the story of the evolutionary code, resulting in enabling the universe to practice true reflexivity, or being able to actually use the present and past to inform the future in a way that can be more sensitive to the needs and requirements of all systems in the universe. Thank you all.
Thank you. Duncan, would you like to be there? So, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Duncan.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Duncan BakerBrown. I'm an architect, academic, and climate activist. And I sit on the National Council of the Royal Institute of British Architects. And I've practiced low-carbon, closed-loop, sustainable design for 30 years. This time, 30 years ago, we were finishing up on the RIBA's House of the Future, which was off-grid, using bio-based materials as much as possible. But crucially, when we weren't, we were ensuring that the house would be a material store for the future. 30 years later, we're still hoping the same sort of thing happens, but a lot more people are taking up this challenge. The good news is that our industry is really impactful, our industry being the construction sector and the design sector. If you design your 10 meter by 10 meter concrete slab 50 millimeters skinnier than normal, you save as much carbon as if you give up meat for a year. So I'm not saying don't give up meat, but those little lines you draw on those drawings on your screens can make a lot of difference. In 2010, the Circular Economy Gap report reported that humans extracted and harvested over between 45 and 50 billion tons of stuff a year from the planet. Fast forward to 2022 with our latest figures, and that's now double that. We're up to about 125 billion tons of stuff harvested and extracted from mines annually. That's important because the construction sector consumes 50% of that stuff. Now, I'm from the global north, in particular from England. So we've been enjoying the natural resources in our industrial revolutions for 200 years. And I won't ignore the fact that there needs to be different strategies across our planet. We've had a lot of fun in the UK for a long time, extracting stuff for a long time. In the UK alone, we consume 600 million tons of stuff a year. We throw away 200 million tons of stuff, and our construction sector is responsible for over 60% of that. Interestingly, in other European countries, it's down to about 35 to 45% of stuff, waste, comes from the construction sector. Now, that's all the bad stuff. The great news is that for the past 25 years, I've been not only practicing, but pursuing other people practicing a sort of low resource consumption option to that. Whether that's Arab architects and Arab engineers at number 1 Triton Square, where they've deconstructed 9 stories of curtain wall system that was only 20 years old that would normally be thrown away. They've deconstructed it, cleaned it up, upgraded it, and put it back on the building. Reusing saves money as well as natural resources. Now, if we can, as I say, mine the anthroposphere, rework the previously manufactured, instead of relying on natural resources, new natural resources all the time, we can alleviate the pressure on the natural world to help us construct our new cities. Our new cities in the global north will be made out of our old cities. We'll mine the anthroposphere, reuse the previously manufactured. And I've got a book coming out in July, and this isn't the book plug, but I want to do, well, it could be. All right, it's the book plug. RIBA, second edition, 40 different case studies from across Europe. I left other places alone because there were just so many. I did the book for the first time in 2017. There were 24 case studies, and it wasn't just from the construction sector, because we drew inspiration from Francis Carey, architect, but also product designers, fashion designers, and the food industry. The new one is just from the construction sector, and it's not just interesting pavilions, etc. It's the normal stuff that we live and work in. People are having a go at reusing. People are deconstructing buildings that normally get thrown away, and it's making monetary sense as well as environmental sense. So I had 2 props, and I've left them on the table. So could you pass? Just those 2, not the book. Yeah, the phone, yeah. That's a prop.
Yes.
Right. In a circular economy is where there's no such thing as waste, where waste from one system is foodstuff for the other. So this is why cities are great for circular systems, because at the moment, everything flows in and out of cities. But in reality, these flows could start speaking to each other and informing each other. So cities are where the circular economy really can happen. And what's really interesting is people are measuring the stuff that flows in and out of cities. So people can tell you where these opportunities are. These maps, these resource maps, whether it's energy, food, fashion, or building materials, or buildings. So if you own an estate of buildings, you can be told the resource potential of your buildings. And we're doing a lot of this at the moment. But at the moment, we exist as a linear system. We take, make, and we throw away really quickly. But in a circular system, for humans, there are 2 spheres, 2 circles. There's the biosphere and the tech sphere. In the biosphere, if you're lucky enough to deal with it, your organic grown stuff is made into things occupied, used, reused, made again, adapted. And then if you don't add toxins, and that is the big don't, it will become part of the biosphere again. Now, the reason I've got this bit of timber here is because we also need our organic materials to come from regenerative sources, which is really difficult. But this is genuinely regenerative timber. This is only 25 years old. It's sweet chestnut. The root system's 500 years old, and you get a crop of timber every 25 years, which is harder, more durable than oak that's 300 years old. So leave the oak trees alone. They support 2,500 species if they're happy. And rework in the UK, in the southeast, the coppice woodlands that the Romans gave us when they came here. The amazing thing is if you do that, you create a greater level of biodiversity than if you leave it alone. Specify that material, increased biodiversity. That's regenerative design, or one definition. But we have a lot of this. This doesn't compost. This involves young people, slaves, difficult materials, and it's very difficult not to own one. We all own one. But this one, I won't advertise it much, comes with a screwdriver. So if a little bit of it fails, you unscrew it, send it back to the supplier. They say that their source material is a lot more ethical, but that's what we need to do with our clients. We need to give them the screwdriver and the power to disassemble what we designed for them. And also, actually, the manufacturers of these things need to be responsible for their end product at the end of its life, because I don't know what to do with this thing at the end of its life. So it gets sent back to the manufacturer. And moving forward, the good news is we know what to do. The design industry knows what to do. I don't know if it's because of COVID or whatever, but the construction sector, across the whole sector, has got an agreed whole life carbon descent plan. We know what to do in the UK and Europe and beyond. We're just waiting for the legislation and the incentives to allow us to do it. These are really exciting times. I'm glad to be involved in this event, and good luck with the event next year. Thank you very much.
First of all, good afternoon, and thank you very much for the invitation to come back to London, okay, to see you, my dear friend, and also to have the opportunity to discuss nature politics. I have different perspectives, okay, everything that you mentioned here, and I agree that with your approach, but to have this, I need 25 different minerals, critical minerals. This means mining security. This means geopolitical, climate geopolitics. This means new expression of power. This is why I had for bio-based future. I had for new expression of political power around the world. And I'm not discussing here. I have some friends, some diplomats here. Don't like to discuss the North and the global South. Because the real world today is West and non-West world. It's different, okay? And this is why it's very important to discuss nature politics, because we have different approach and different looks considering nature-based solution, or nature age, or bio-age, as we used to say. Today, I believe, and this is my real world, I'm sorry, I need to be pragmatic, okay, that you have different things that coming together. You have climate, you have nature, you have digital technological world, okay, you have security, peace, and in my country, democracy, okay? And these 6 pillars will come together or not to make sure that we can come into the bio-based future. For my society that fought against the crisis in our democracy, this is really a powerful value. And for this, it's very important how society will understand nature as a value. And this means, for us, really, we need to have a new mindset, globally, regionally, as you mentioned here, if I understand, and also to consider the different perspective of design and solutions. This narrative, a new narrative that's coming, must not be based on tragedy. Nobody worries, nobody supported mom. Don't do this, please. Okay? But of course, that hope is something, and we go into the country is war. I just came from Ukraine. I stayed there almost 15 days. And it's impressive how that society doesn't want to talk about hope. Okay? And you need to understand why Ukraine is so very important, not only for the European countries. This is the last West buffer zone to preserve the West world. And this means we are discussing natural resource. Okay? And we are not discussing what is happening in the war, consider our future. We are adding crisis, okay, because of nature. Nature no longer stands wars. Be sure of this. What's happening in the world, not to consider the past, and because of climate change, etc., what's happening today, we're adding crisis to consider the future. And this means that we need to discuss nature-based solutions or with nature-positive approach. Everything that you mentioned here, I absolutely agree with circularity. I'm the head co-chair of the Scientific Panel on United Nations that exactly launched the last report about global resource outlook. Check it. You can check the numbers. Of course, the lifestyle in Europe countries are not possible to be reproductive in other countries. Okay, we cannot assume that we can have one citizen here that have around 16 times a carbon footprint than the developing world. This is not sustainable, this is not inclusive, this is not nature-based solutions. And what will happen probably is that we have high costs, economic costs, and the transition from this age to another age will be so high social and environmental costs. And this means that the global politics will come in not only based on global perspective, but global and planetary perspectives. It's a new dimension. And for this, we need to understand the role of the countries that provide our natural resource in nature. My country is the most important life producers in the world. We produce life in Brazil. And this is our choice. We have a beautiful map about NASA produced this, and you come to the global perspectives and you check the nature. How nature is expressed in different countries around the world. You observe that, unfortunately, we are not nature producer or life producers in this country. And this is the future. This is how we should combine our interests, how we should bring our values, how we can share values, how we should not necessarily have common values to come together as societies. And this is the huge political challenge that we have today. Because when you go into the non-Western world, we have 35% of the global population that will demand materials, will demand natural resource, will demand life, food, mining, security, everything. And we are not discussing this when you have a polarized world, what you have today. So I like too much when you show the history and you compare the design and also the different looks, how you can approach things, and you go into different societies. You come to discuss nature in different societies, you have different approaches and different imaginarium, considering what they want to do with our assets. Even in my country, in Brazil, okay? We are a huge country, probably approach Brazil only based on Amazon region. I would like to say that we have 25 million people that live in the Amazon region, and we have 108 million people that live in non-Amazon region in Brazil. It's true. So, and you have 25 million people that live in cities in the Amazon region. And nobody discussed this. We discuss security, we discuss peace. And my country is a country that has peace more than 152 years with our neighbors. This is a powerful value when you go to a country, on a continent that under pressure consider wars. And what is happening in Europe, I'm sorry, but we are under pressure considering the war. And about the future, we need to understand how to like to approach nature, consider our threats, but consider our perspectives, as both of you mentioned, based on solutions, if you understand. But these solutions you can share with all around the world. We're able to do this because if you go to the history of how sharing innovation technologies in the last 200 years, the model that we adopt, this model provoke inequalities, social inequalities. So how would you like to come to make sure that you can have nature as a political asset to bring people together and to bring the diversity of society together? That's why art, culture is so important, because the barriers are different. There is no barriers to discuss art and culture and diversity. And this is very, very creative to provoke innovative political perspectives and also approach when you come in bio age, together with climate age, together with innovation age, consider peace, consider security, and consider also democracy. Why democracy? Because I'm free to have my choice. And this is very, very important because we're discussing about choices. Okay? So if you want to come into bio age, if you want to discuss this, Anna, we are ready. We are never not ready. I'm not sure if we will be ready, but I'm convinced that we need to discuss this into different perspectives, politically, economically, and I'm absolutely sure that this is a huge opportunity for us as humankind to discuss a new expressions of humanism and also a new expression of green enlightenment. And this means that we, as humankind, we should be able to manage the peace in the right direction. So it's a big challenge, okay? I'm absolutely engaged in this debate concerning nature politics. It's an open concept. This is not clear yet because we have the powerful driver of climate, the climate geopolitics, but we need to go beyond this, okay? And I'm convinced that if you have this opportunity to come with a new relationship between humankind and nature and humankind, probably you should be back here the next year to discuss really solutions and how your solutions with wood, etc. But first of all, I have 25 minerals here. And this is the critical geopolitical issue today, that you come to Africa, you come to China, you come to Ukraine, another country in the world, the people that manage power today. So what will be the new expression of political power if you have the bio age? And this is, for me, how we can be inclusive, how we can share things, how we can believe in our capacities to create something more than this, how we can tell new stories about the future. And please, don't repeat the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I was just wondering whether there are questions in the plenary, not in whether people want to ask questions to the panelists.
Of course not.
I'm sure we have lots of questions. There is a lady over there.
It's on this side. I'll walk over to you.
On this side. Yeah, your name, organization, and your question, please.
Hello, my name is Alice Black, and I'm from a company called Art Ultra. My question is for Duncan and Ehab. I was wondering if those solutions that you're talking about have been implemented at scale somewhere in the world, because we hear a lot about, innovation, that material, this thing, circular. It's been around for some time, but the issue often is to actually roll it out in a significant way.
Thank you. I'm going to see if I take another round of questions before, so that...
Any hands on this side?
No questions on this end?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Do you guys want to take it?
Yeah, I'm happy to take it. I would cite Kate Rayworth, who is the author, an economist and author of Donut Economics, and there's a network of donut cities around the world. There's a network of fab cities around the world, and these are cities that are taking on board circular principles. I would say there's a lot of talk about it, and I'm not going to deny that, but there's a lot of interest in it. And I know of banks involved in promoting the circular economy. The AMB AMRO Bank in the Netherlands will give you circular economy advice if you want, and it will outwardly say it's not only a finance bank, but it's a materials bank. So I think this is the idea of a building at the end of its life, a big building or a collection of buildings being a material asset to someone rather than a pain in the neck that needs to be demolished and thrown away. So I think it is happening at scale. Even in the UK, which I would say is 5 or 10 years behind the Netherlands and Germany and France. In the UK, most local authorities at the moment are doing feasibility studies into the digital and physical infrastructure required to support a circular economy in the construction sector. And in the construction sector and the food and fashion sectors, this is where it's leading, because these, in a way, it's low-lying fruit. You know, in the UK, over 90% of our local authorities have committed to being net zero carbon by 2030. If they're in a position to procure the built environment and buildings, they're doing it with circular economy principles because it will save them money.
May I add comments? Would you like? Are you sure? Take care. Two things. I'm the co-chair of International Resource Panel, the scientific panel of 9 nations that exactly address circular economy. Okay, and that's why I mentioned our report and how the things are coming. We have these new green economies that should be combined to be together, like green economies. We need to avoid the green wishing that's happening today in the world. Okay, it's not greenwashing; it's green wishing. Everyone wants to be green. And probably you have some tree huggers around the world, okay, that thinks that this means how we manage things. What's very important when you go into these economies is that we're looking for to address not only technologies, but also how we manage jobs, and how we manage time. Because it's something that we can provide some different solutions today, but the consequence is that you have people without jobs. Okay? That's why I mentioned how you can have the convergence of climate age, digital technological age, bio age. We need to understand how this new generation will use this, okay, to make sense that you can have economic growth in different ways, I agree. But we need to redesign things, to reshape things if you want to come into bio age or deal with nature into different perspectives. This is the first point. So the science coming, saying all the data, sharing all the data. For example, we know in our scientific panel that around 56% of the global emission, green climate emissions, comes from an efficient use of natural resource. Okay, so if we're able to improve our capacity to be more efficient, means that we're able to tackle climate change. It's the same as around 90% of biodiversity loss. It's the same of 9% of water scarcity, okay? So water security. So the new ways to see natural resource and how we can come with technological, innovative materials that come together, new ones that come together, exactly to frame how the industry, not only recycling, but how the industry will come. And regulation is very important. This is happening in this country. This is happening in European countries. For example, in China, the ecological civilization in China is one of the pillars of the ecological civilization, exactly circular economy. And how this is happening in their cities. Okay, that's why you have the difference from China 1, China 2, China 3. 3 different Chinas that we have today. I don't know if you know about this, but it's fascinating how that society is really managed perfect eradication. They eradicate more than 800 million people. This will never happen. This never happened with India. Okay, this is very interesting to observe. You go into global perspective, the impact on our solutions. My last comment: when you go to understand this, and for example, housing and civil works, you use cement. You know the problems that cement industry has considered greenhouse emissions. But if you compare the consumption of cement in China from 2011 to 2013. The quantity, how they use this is the same that the United States used in 20th century. Think about scalability. Think about it. We're not discussing only how we can use things, but how they scale that we use things today. So it's very interesting when you go into natural resource debate because this is tangible. We have accountability, we understand, we have traceability. And this means that we as consumers, we need to know our responsibility when you buy something, okay? When you demand something. So this absolutely connects to international trade that nobody discusses here about this. And this is the real world. If you want to transform things, then you need to transform things, we need to connect the dots. You need to understand our responsibility individually, as society, regionally, and globally. If not, it's the same. I will do my best the next 30 years. I will do my best by 2030. It's like the problems will be in the future. I'm sorry, the problem is happening today. No. The problem is happening today. Be conscious and let's come together with us and let's change the world. Why not?
Thank you. Ehab.
Yeah, I think the question of scalability is really important because you're absolutely right. We do see these technologies come up all over the world, and as soon as we ask about whether they're scalable or not, we get the answer that they are scalable, and then we see those companies disappear off the face of the earth. And I think the challenge that we're facing is that a lot of the bio-based material technologies that are emerging are relying on particular waste streams, particular resources that are either renewable or not, but are just not available in the quantity required for the scale required by industry. We're talking about replacing established industries that have been evolving for decades in the matter of a few years, 5, 10 years, even 1 decade. And in order to really achieve that, we need to begin to think the way nature does. And I'm talking about nature, again, beyond just biological nature, how stars are formed, how we, evolved from stardust that was taken into the core of the Earth. And we begin to realize that everything around us is formed of 5 simple compounds: carbon, oxygen, sulfur, nitrogen, and so on. And if we are able to break down the waste streams, whether it's through urban mining, whether it's through agricultural waste streams, or just resources that are available in abundance in particular countries, and break them down through biological and chemical processes without any harsh toxins, and enable them to be the building blocks for new products and new technologies, you have an infinitely scalable technology. And that is the approach we take at Biohm. We don't touch a technology or an approach if it's not going to meet the construction industry scale, because that's our main industry we're focusing on first. And it is also the most challenging and the largest scale we can tackle. When it comes to actually implementing those technologies, we make sure that they're scalable in a way that maintains our regenerative impact on our ethos as a company. So not only are we looking at biodiversity loss or resource depletion or environmental matters, we actually look at the full 12 categories within a life cycle assessment, not just carbon. But we then also look at the social impact. How are we preserving local heritage? How are we enabling local communities to bring a piece of themselves into the product that is being generated? And even though we are targeting major governments and multinationals to license our technologies, we actually legally oblige them to put a profit share towards a local community within 100 kilometers of each factory. And that profit share is to be spent by the local community's desires and needs and wants. And that may also mean that they want to edit the technology and work with it in a way that doesn't compromise IP or the deal that we're making with the major multinational. So there are definitely ways of achieving global scale on mass production without necessarily compromising the things that matter for those local communities, and ensuring that wealth distribution is not always being sucked up to the same organization or the company that brings it in, but distributed equitably within the local community as well. And that same approach is done with resources as well. We're taking local resources within only 60 miles of each factory and only serving the local market. We're limiting the size of each factory as well. And the surprise is that those organizations are increasing their profit margins tenfold by doing that, enabling them to justify that profit share to the local community with higher profitability as well.
All right. Thank you very much. We're at time, so a round of applause to all the amazing speakers.